Hello everyone and welcome back to Bitcoin Tips. So today I'm going to be doing part 2 of building my new mining rig, going over the step-by-step on putting together the mining rig and getting it booted into HiveOS and starting to mine. So before we get into the video, make sure you hit that like button. That'll help the YouTube algorithm in recommending my video for more people to see, meaning more people will learn about mining and cryptocurrency. So before we get into it, I do want to start off by talking about the CPU because this I did not have for the last video I did about the parts. So as you can see here, it is the Celeron, if it focuses, it's the Celeron G4400. There we go, kind of focused, but yep. So it is a dual core 3.1 gigahertz CPU. For crypto mining, if you're new to it, you don't need a lot in the CPU area, so the G4900 will do just fine for this application. So I'm going to go ahead and open this, and we'll get the motherboard and install the CPU. Okay, so I got the CPU out of the box and I have the motherboard right here. So this part of building a crypto mining rig is actually very similar, and if not exactly the same, to building a regular computer, whether it's gaming or workstation or anything like that. But we just have to take the CPU here. I'll take it out of the plastic thing that it's in now, and it's going to go right into here. First, you have to remove the tension arm here, so you just kind of push down and pull out, and that lifts this whole cage up, and the CPU will slot right into there, and then we'll just close that, and the CPU will be in. Okay, so I got the CPU installed. Again, that's pretty much the exact same as installing a CPU in any other computer. You just have to line up the little triangle with the triangle on the motherboard and then put the retention arm back down. Now, for the cooler, I will just be using the stock Intel cooler that comes with the CPU. Again, this is a very low power, low heat CPU, and it's going to be under almost no load most of the time, so the Intel stock cooler is more than enough for this purpose, and that allows the budget for the computer to be a little bit lower, as you don't have to buy a bigger, more powerful cooler, since the CPU isn't used that much, so you just use the one that comes with it. So I'll go ahead and get that installed, and then we'll work on the RAM. Okay, so now we're going to install our 8GB stick of RAM. You will want to check your motherboard's manual, depending on how many RAM slots you have, to figure out which one you'll want to put your RAM in, depending on if you have 1, 2, or more sticks of RAM. In this case, I only have 1, so I'll be putting it in the first slot, which is labeled B1. For most motherboards, you'll just want to put it in either A or B1, depending on how many slots you have. Again, this motherboard, the Gigabyte Z390 UD, is not necessarily a mining motherboard, so it does have a lot more slots of RAM than maybe a traditional mining motherboard. But I'm going to go ahead and get this put in, and then we'll hook up all of the power, and we will be able to test the board, make sure everything works, and then eventually boot into HiveOS. Okay, so I got the RAM installed, and I went ahead and connected our 24-pin power to the motherboard, as well as the 8-pin CPU power from our power supply. And at this point, everything is put onto the motherboard. The CPU fan is plugged in. So what I'm going to do is go ahead and hook up an HDMI cable. Since this is an Intel CPU, it does have the onboard graphics, so the HDMI will work. If you're using AMD, you do have to have a graphics card. So at this point, I think I'm just going to go ahead and see if we can boot into the BIOS, make sure everything is detected, and then we can get our installation of HiveOS and try and boot into that. So give me 1 second to connect the HDMI and get it tested, and hopefully we'll be in the BIOS. Alright, so you can see here, CPU fan is spinning, we got some motherboard LEDs, and if we quickly move over to here, you can see that we are in the BIOS. It has been reset for some troubleshooting that I was working on, so I'm going to go ahead and configure the BIOS. Once I get it all set up here, I'll show you everything detected, and then we can hopefully boot into HiveOS and get our GPUs set up. Okay, so here you can see The information on the motherboard, CPU, and RAM, everything seems to be looking good. We got 3.1 gigahertz on the CPU, 28 degrees. Memory voltage looks good, and you can see down here we have the CPU fan, and over here is our 4 lanes, and as I said before, we're in lane B1, so that looks pretty cool. So like I said, I'm going to go ahead and turn on like the 4G decoding, stuff like that in here, and then we'll put in our HiveOS USB bootable drive, and we should be able to start mining within the next 5 to 10 minutes. So I will be right back, and hopefully we'll be in HiveOS. Okay, so as you can see here, we are booting, and it does see that there is the HiveOS, which is the flash drive that I created a few days ago. So once this will boot up, I'll just double check everything is still showing up once HiveOS initializes, and then we can add some GPUs. But as you can see here, we got the flash drive added on with HiveOS, and it seems to be running just fine so far. So coming back over here real quick, you can see that it is starting to do the initialization of HiveOS. And then what I'll do is probably add in the GPUs, show you what those look like, and then jump into the HiveOS config and show you setting it up and, you know, programming the flight sheet and getting it going. So looking good so far. Okay, so as you can see, I went ahead and put one of the 1660 Ti's right on the motherboard, just to make sure that it is showing up on the HiveOS. So what we'll do now is just hop over to HiveOS on the computer, and go ahead and get the flight sheet going, make sure it starts up and mining, and then we'll be all set to go. So definitely looking good. I do want to say at this point I do not have a case for this entire build yet, but what I am doing is 3D printing a case for it. So in the follow-up video of how it's running and everything, I will show the final build. I do have to print a few more parts for the case, and again, I did that just because I wanted to save some cost on the final build. So we're going to go ahead and hop over to HiveOS and get this all configured and running. So I'll join you over on the screen recording. Okay, so we are over here on HiveOS now. As you can see, we have our GeForce 1660 Ti. I do have to update HiveOS, and you can see that we have our motherboard here, our CPU, and then my disk, which is just the USB, the 32 gigabyte version. So what I'm going to go ahead and do now is switch to the Flight Sheet tab, and I am going to be mining Ethereum using the Ethereum miner through HiveOS here. So what I'm going to go ahead and do is create a new flight sheet and get that programmed here, and then what I'll do is come back once it is mining and show you what it's looking like. So give me 1 second to get that all set up, and hopefully we can be seeing some hashes here in the next few minutes. Okay, so I did want to show you here the flight sheet setup that I'm going to be using. So I'm going to be mining Ethereum to my wallet, which I have already set up, and then I'm going to be using HiveOS's pool, Hivon, because there are no fees, and it's mining direct Ethereum, and it will just pay out to my wallet once I meet their minimum of, I believe it's 0.1 Ethereum. So, and then I chose to use ETHmine here, because it supports both NVIDIA and AMD. If you've seen some of my previous videos on the channel, you'll know I have a 580 rig. There have been some issues with that, and I ended up only being able to run 5 of the 6 580s. So I'm hoping to be able to run the two 1660s I have right now, the 1060, and the 580. So hopefully I can get all of those working on this rig, which is why I did name it Mixed. So what I went ahead and did here is set it right here. So this one is pretty much the exact same, except it's using Team Red Miner, which is for that other RX 580 rig, which obviously won't work with my NVIDIA cards. So going back to farms, and then the Bitcoin Tips farm, you can see here switching in. We still don't have a flight sheet, so what I'll go ahead and do is find my flight sheet here. I don't know why it's not coming up. Alright, let me see. ETH miner. See, this is the one going to NiceHash. I don't know why it's not popping up right there. So give me 1 minute to try and find it, and then I'll get it activated. Okay, so as you can see here, it is working on installing the HiveOS miner for the ETH hash. So I went ahead and just remoted into it through the remote software that's part of HiveOS. But as you can see here, I just had to refresh the page once I stopped recording. It showed up, which was a little bit annoying, but all I did was go ahead and activate the flight sheet, and it is working on getting spun up in HiveOS now. So once this gets all set up and installed, we should be able to start seeing some hashes. So once that happens, I will go ahead and update you and finish out the video. I'll probably do all the overclocks off camera, so in the part 3, when everything is put together, we can see the final hashes and overclocks and all of that. But as you can see, it's configuring the pool and everything right now, which is definitely really cool, and nice to see that it is coming up here. Let's see, it looks like we're getting some jobs, and once it reports here on HiveOS on the remote desktop software here, we should be able to go back to the GUI on the web and see some hashes. So looks like we're still working right around 0 here, so it does take some time to kind of kick in. So let's see, let's refresh. Alright, so we can see that it's still loading. We have no hashes yet, but we do have a temperature here, so that's definitely good. And you can see we're starting to get our first hashes here. And see, 56.9, 28 mega hashes. So, or I'm sorry, 25. But what I'll do is, at this point, we'll probably end the video here. So if you guys liked this video, make sure to hit that like button. That'll help YouTube in recommending this video to more people, so more people can learn about cryptocurrency mining and see how easy it really is to get started. And if you guys want to see the part 3, make sure you hit the subscribe button and click that bell icon to stay up to date on all of our videos. But as you can see here, we're getting 25 mega hashes with no overclocks on this single 1660. So at this point, what I'm going to do is add in the rest of the GPUs and work on some overclocks, and we'll hopefully be able to get everything running stable. And once I finish getting the case put together, I'll go ahead and make that final update video. So I hope you guys enjoyed, and I hope to see you in my next video. Bye.